Friday the 17th of June. I expect the music drowned that out. It is the 17th of June in the year 2022. This is Rouser Radio, broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, East Sussex. And I'm the mouth, Keith Hayes, with you for the next 3/4 of an hour. And it's a lovely day out there. It's going to hit 24 degrees today. I've got the lovely Shannon here looking after me. How are you, darling?
Good morning. I'm very well.
Here she is. This is radio, so we can't see her. You come back later so they can see how beautiful you are.
Oh.
Okay, there she is. Looks after me wonderfully well first thing in the morning. You couldn't ask for more. You really couldn't. Anyway, what should we... Let's hear it for her. The wonderful Shannon, a legend in her own time. Right. Now let's have a little rant before we get going this morning. Why is it that we permit people to have a license to do business when they will not use their own products? And I'm talking about O2 this morning. Have you ever tried to phone O2? First of all, it is a state secret which number you call. It will tell you how to contact them in every way except using a phone. And eventually, if you are persistent enough by digging into the web, you will find their phone number. But it doesn't do you a bit of good because it's the old thing of press 1, press 2, press 3, press 4, and none of them fit what I want. So I tried, are you terribly unhappy, etc., etc. And it said, press 1 if you know the number you're calling from, press 2 if you want to go back to the main menu. I mean, I really gave up. I gave up. And if I believe that if a company does not believe in its own products, and this one obviously doesn't, it doesn't think that the telephone is a good way of communicating, then it is time for it to pack its bags and give way to somebody who will produce a product and does believe in it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That is my belief. And if they don't want you to use the telephone, don't provide the service for it. Give it to somebody who has got self-belief. All these companies, BT, O2, Virgin, they have all got too big for their boots. And they scare the living bejesus out of the people in Westminster. Because if they say boo, and we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, send shivers down the spine of everybody. They're scared silly. Jelly politicians. Oh, that's a good one. Yes, jelly politicians. That's what we call them. Jelly politicians. Right, okay. Let's take a look at the papers, or start to take a look at the papers. The Daily Telegraph. Inflation to hit 11%, says the Bank of England. You know, I really don't quite understand. The things that stoke inflation are over demand for products, so the price goes up, scarcity or price increase of raw materials. Well, now, you can understand that all the bravado, and I warned about this way back in April at the start of the war in Ukraine, is you start using economic forces to try and punish an aggressor, and he will find a way to turn them so they hit back at you. And boy, are they hitting back at us? Because what we said is we won't buy this and we won't buy that, and so on, and we said we would cut buying gas and oil and so on and so forth. So the Russians have said, all right, stop it then. Not only that, we won't sell anything to you at all. And so we are in an energy crisis because the cost of the gas and the oil from Russia has spiraled. And the fact that we are at a shortage means that prices are pushed up. So inflation has come roaring in. But the central banks, which are supposed to fight inflation, seem to have been caught napping, caught by surprise. And it's now apparently reaching 11%. The Fed, the Federal Reserve, perhaps the most important central bank in the world, has put up its interest rates by 3 points, almost unprecedented, unheard of. And it's a way that the banks have of trying to cap inflation by making money more expensive. In theory, people then don't buy money or don't use it as much, and so that stops a surge in productivity, and down the demand goes, down the price goes. In theory, and we stop inflation and we all get back to normal. Well, I have to say that the way things are at the moment is some bloody hope. It is not a good scene, not a good scene at all. And I think that we need now some fresh thinking on inflation, and perhaps on how our economy works. People have tampered with that for a long time. At the moment, the markets are king. Okay, so the Daily Telegraph inflation hit 11%. The Times, pain ahead as Britain's brace for 11% inflation. I mean, basically, what does it mean? It means that you're going to pay 11% over the odds for anything. It's not quite true because we use a basket of goods. Some will go up, some will stay where they are. But basically, life is going to be much more expensive. And food is, heat and light is, other facilities are, fuel will be, which means the transport costs will undoubtedly feel a strain. If we don't feel increases now, we most certainly will in the not too distant future. So it is, we're in for a real painful experience, and nobody knows how long it's going to last. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove said the government can't help everyone during the cost of living crisis. Why did the Bank of England only increase interest rates by 1/4 percentage point when the US Federal Reserve increased them by 3 times as much? Well, uh, that's a good question. In the long run, the government approves who will be the governor of the Bank of England, so it's their man who didn't do probably what he should have done. Everybody moaned that the one before him was a Canadian, but at least he kept his finger on the pulse of things. Now it seems that we've got somebody who is either too frightened or not savvy enough to handle our economic problems. The Daily Mail. Now brace for pain of the big crunch. Interest rates higher than 1.25, higher than 1.25%, saying it must squeeze out the inflationary pressures. The paper quotes experts who say interest rates could hit 3.5% by the end of the year. The only thing is, that if everybody plays fair, that shouldn't make much difference to your borrowing from the bank, because they actually, if the base rate is 1%, let's say, is they immediately charge 10% on their stuff. I mean, they are usurers. We've been fat and sassy, so we haven't bothered to look at these things. We've been living in absolute hell. And we've been living in heaven, actually. The trouble is that it's all been a veneer, and we've all been doing things which we couldn't really afford. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, and we're all going to feel it. Oh boy, are we going to feel it. And the money boys are rubbing their hands with glee because it doesn't matter what happens to us. They will get their percentage. They will get their pound of flesh. They will behave like Shylock, and everybody will say, ooh. The Metro, 11% hell is on the way. Yeah. The Eye, no tax cuts for 2 years as inflation heads for 11%. Well, the government again got caught. They can't actually cut taxes because lowering a tax would stoke inflation. We would all have more money to spend. We would pour that into the economy. We would force prices up. We would force more money being sloshing around, and so therefore we would stoke inflation, and we would start to push prices up beyond those that we can afford. So I understand why they're not. The only thing is, surely, no. I'm on record as saying we've got a whole bunch of idiots in charge at every level of every sector. So they didn't. They didn't see it coming. Why was it? It was little television stations and radio stations like ours that did see it coming and did give some expression of concern. They don't listen to us, you see. They listen to the big boys, and even then they don't. They have somebody who comes in with a piece of paper that says this is what BBC said, this is what ITV said, etc., etc. And they have the clippings in front of them. They don't even read. Dreadful. It's dreadful. And what do we get? We get poor governance. We get idiots in charge. We have people who are unaware, and then at the last minute they wring their hands and find every reason as to why it's not their fault. Well, it is your fault. Not just the parliamentarians, but the people at the bank, the economists, the people who are taking big fat salaries out of the city, the energy companies, all these chief executives. And when their pay package is questioned, the answer is, but they work very hard, and their special knowledge. Well, their special knowledge has got it into the shit, to put it bluntly. So why are we allowing them to take these obscene levels of payment? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Let's go for breeze, shall we? Yeah. That was breeze, 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 breeze. Right, okay. Back to being a curmudgeon, a blowhard. Yes, yes, yes. The funny thing is, is people say, "Oh, you haven't thought it through," and so on and so forth. Knee-jerk reaction. It's amazing how many times we turn out to be right after taking the flak from those people who supposedly know better. Why do they know better? Who knows why they think they know better? But one has to listen because they represent the mass public who will now say, "Oh my God, how do we manage to get out of this? And who allowed us to get into this? Well, it was you, you prats, because you like to take the easy option out. That's what you like." Good morning.
Room? No. Is it? Yes.
Is it what, sorry?
The breakfast room?
No, it's not. The breakfast room is, if you go back this way, and then it's right at the far end of it, the nice wooden panel room. Right, okay. Yeah, there's a gentleman there who we're in the White Hart Hotel, I'm happy to say. It's a lovely place to broadcast from. I can't tell you. First of all, a lovely, lovely staff who welcome you every morning. It's a pleasure to come into, quote, the office. But also, I'm happy to say, that you find all sorts of people who are ready to sort of come and have a little chat first thing in the morning. It's great. Right, okay. Now, I've got in front of me no tax cuts for 2 years as inflation hits to 11%. We actually covered that, but that's in the eye, and that's how they see the most important part of it is, and I'm just trying a little experiment here. And whether it will work or not, I have no idea. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And why not try a little experiment here and there? Why not, indeed? So, there we go. I, yes, yeah, of course, at the moment you can hear us. But let us see whether, in fact, ready to go live, it says. I think it's trying to click into the internet. Oh, we're live. So, those of you who are fans of Mirador TV and you follow us, Mirador TV comes on at 8:30. But while we're doing Rouser Radio, I've just popped into the studio, and by a miracle, you can actually see me there. So while I'm pounding away at the government and the banks and everybody, yeah, you can see what it's like to see an old curmudgeon having a real go first thing in the morning. The first thing that I should be looking at, and I haven't yet, is Shannon, God bless her soul, has brought me a coffee, and I think that it is incumbent upon me to actually make sure that I pour this coffee. Oh, it's hot. It is. It's lovely and hot. So there we are. I'm pouring a coffee. It's out of shot. You can't see it. But then this is radio. You aren't supposed to see it. And there we go. Poured some milk into it. Brought it across. And I'm about to have a cup of coffee. There we go, there we go, there we go. Right? Okay. Haha. So, where are we? Yeah, okay. No tax cuts for 2 years as inflation hits from 11%. Now, strangely enough, everybody's saying, you promised us tax cuts, but it's the most sensible thing that the government can do. I mean, one of the things that there are several ways of attacking inflation, but the main one is to make sure that you don't fuel the economy. In other words, that you discourage people from pouring their money out of their own coffers and into those of the public domain. Keep tight, hold tight. So if you cut taxes, you encourage people to spend. Now, under some circumstances, that's good for the economy. But when you're experiencing inflation, it is bad for the economy because it pushes it up. So moan and moan and moan, but that pain is not a bad one. Well, as much as pain can be poor. Right now, the Daily Express shock as food prices to soar by 15%. Well, they already have. I go into the superstore. Something that actually cost me £1 a month ago is now £1.25. Now that's more than 15%, and I'm not a bit surprised that inflation is being stoked if what's happening is that prices are going up at that level. Although one would argue that people will shop for less, but they don't seem to. That's the problem. We've got so used to having plenty of moans over the last 10 or 15 years, but basically we have been fat and sassy. You want this? Take out the credit card. Pop down. Get it. Have you got the money? Nah, but we will. We'll have it. And now suddenly we're not going to have it because things are going to be that much more expensive. So that's the Daily Express. The Guardian. Johnson may scrap the role of ethics advisor after Gelt's resignation. Well, the dear old Guardian can never, ever. Let's admire it as a paper. It is independent. It looks at things that others don't look at, but it does tend to be very focused on the sort of the liberal middle class point of view. Oh gosh, everybody's starving. Everybody's going to have problems buying bread. But the Guardian and the Guardianistas, the people who read the Guardian, are all this ethics question is bugger the ethics question. Let us say to the ethics question, just go on to the back burner. There's no reason why, quietly in the background, you can't have some civil servants or a committee or whatever still investigate what Boris and what Keir Starmer did is wrong. That's fine. We're not arguing that. What we're arguing is that he should keep centre stage and take up the time of the parliamentarians who, for legislation, need time to debate the various points that the government put through in the Queen's speech. Not made by the Queen this year, but nonetheless an important legislative mark in the political year, and they need to get on with it. And instead of talking about iced cake and half bottles of champagne, curries and beer, what are you going to do about it, even if you find that they're not ethical? Fire them? And who are you going to replace them with? That's got to be the standing joke. I can't see anybody in the benches on either side of the House that could possibly step into the shoes of the two leaders at the moment. And if they're only leaders because of experience, boy, have they been through fire. And I think we should appreciate that. And somebody yesterday was saying, listen, Boris may sometimes be beyond the pale. He may sometimes really excite us so much that we would like to throttle him. But the fact is that he has handled very difficult situations, and he hasn't actually done a half-bad job. It's the job of the opposition to sort of point the finger. But when we actually start on this ethical thing over an iced Christmas cake, then it gets nonsensical, and it shows the frailties and the weaknesses of our system. Yeah. Right, the Daily Mirror. Maxwell, let me out in 2 years. Good old Mirror is when things get tough and it can't really justify supporting Labour's position, it finds something else for its front pages. So Giselle or Ghislaine Maxwell is has said that she would like to be given she's urging the court to let her out of prison in 2 years because she says she poses no danger. But she thinks she is above the law, they say. And sometimes privileged people do. Basically, she was pimping. is almost 50 years anyway, possibly 60 years of journalism. I come across some pimps, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that pimping and prostitution is a vile proposition, that we should do something about it. But generally speaking, I agree with you. Pimps don't do much harm. I once stood in the middle of Belgrade. No, it wasn't. It was Bucharest in Romania at about 10 o'clock at night, looking for a restaurant. And out from the shadows glided a young girl, 15 perhaps, and she offered to take me back to her place or whatever. And I said no, looking for a restaurant. So she said, "Oh, where is it?" So here we stood looking at the map, trying to decide which street it was that this restaurant was on. And then out from the shadows again glided a gentleman wanting to know what was going on. It was her pimp. And we explained the dilemma, and he started to help us. So the three of us, I was standing in the middle of Bucharest at 10 o'clock at night, looking for a restaurant on the map, and having a pimp and a prostitute help me. And did they threaten me in any way? No, they did not. Actually, they were quite nice people. So I do have some sympathy when she says that she is no great threat. Okay, she's a high-class pimp. She's got a reputation of knowing the great and the good and dealing with the great and the good, and that's why she's there, really. But it's I have some sympathy of no, can she do a lot of harm? Is the argument, well, she should pay for what she has done? Possibly. That's a different argument, which I'm not going to get into this morning. But Ghislaine wishes to be given a light prison sentence, let out in 2 years. My God, I'll tell you, it would scare the living bejesus out of me to think I was going in for 2 days, let alone 2 years. But there we go. It's all a matter of relativity, isn't it? Right, this coffee is tasting good. The Sun. Also, the Sun is managing to stay away from anything serious. It's not a serious newspaper anymore. It was at one time. The Sun was a pretty damn good newspaper, despite the fact that it had tits on page 3. But now it's done away with the tits, but it's done away with some of its purpose too. And it's really not the newspaper that it was. So it's avoiding the temptation to get involved in the things which possibly matter. Is their headline is "Killed in Airport Chaos," and at Gatwick Airport there is apparently a man who is a disabled man who got frustrated at waiting, tried to get off the plane, and in the process fell from one of the air bridges and killed himself. And whether that's to do with the packed airport or delays or frustrations, I'm not sure. But anyway, it happened. The Financial Times, Ukraine's drive to join the EU gains impetus from European leaders. There must be 2 issues with the Times this morning. Must be an earlier one, and they've changed the headline, have they? No, it was the Telegraph who was on about inflation. So take it back. The Financial Times talks about the fact that Ukraine wants to join the EU immediately. Now, there is a bit of a problem there. I mean, first of all, it needs the agreement of all 27 to fast track its application. But secondly, and I understand this because I've worked on EU, well, getting countries ready for EU membership in the Balkans. And those in the Balkans that have been working for almost 20 years to get them their economies into shape and their governance into shape so that they meet EU regulations are saying, or rightly to say, hey, this is foul. Why does a Johnny come lately jump over us? And this may be a warning to Nicola Sturgeon, who keeps on talking about if Scotland leaves the Union, that it will then jump into the EU. That they all love Scotland. Well, they may all love Scotland on the surface, but there are 27 of them. You can guarantee that at least 20 who don't know diddly squat about Scotland and don't give a damn. And there are another dozen waiting for membership who are going to say why they get preference. So a good lesson, I think, for Nicola Sturgeon. Should we be giving? Well, it's not up to us really. We've opted out. But should the EU and its member states approve Ukraine coming into the EU? Well, one could argue exceptional circumstances, I suppose, and why not? So it's a good question, but it's a bit of a puzzle. Now let's see. The good old Star. I love the Star. I really do. And it has stayed with the fact that we're going to have hot weather right throughout every crisis. You have to go way into the inside pages to find out what's happening in the Star. But its front page is always just a delight. 6 pints of water and a packet of crisps, please. What it's saying is that because we're going to hit 24 and by tomorrow possibly even more, that don't drink too much alcohol, drink water. So you go into the pub and you belly up to the bar and you say, can I have my packet of crisps and can I have 6 pints of water with it? And I don't suppose that we can say about water 1/8, can we? No. Oh, dear. Very, very good. Very good. Well done, the Star. It keeps me highly amused. Highly amused. All right, that's what the papers are saying. Shall we? Well, there's one here that I don't remember hearing. It's "Your Love" by Young Logos. Let's play it and see what it's all about. Well, that's sort of a somnolence, isn't it? I mean, I could have gone back to sleep sitting here. I was talking to Shannon, the beautiful young lady who keeps the front desk going here first thing in the morning at the White Hart, and she said, "Oh, this morning I really could have gone back to sleep." And I understand too. I could have gone back to sleep as well. I was feeling very. Uh, Strangely enough, once the adrenaline starts to surge, once you start to work and you start to talk to people the way that I'm privileged to do first thing in the morning, you start to get the energy starts to come back and you start to get excited. But that early morning yawn is it's just it's just dreadful. It's a threshold to get over. Now, one of the things that there isn't once again a great deal that has happened locally that has would be of import to the rest of the world. But one important thing is that Sussex wines, in other words, wines that actually are made from vineyards within the county, have got the designation Sussex wine. And that's like champagne and other designations. Um, Prosecco, I suppose, would be a designation as well. I don't really know, but we tend to now say Prosecco for anything that comes out of Italy, don't we? And the so as champagne is sparkling wine, so now the designation Sussex wines. And that's rather good because Sussex wines have been gaining in reputation. They win blind tastings all the time. They are used by royalty to entertain overseas visitors. And all in all, it's a bit of a success story. And I followed this from about 1990, when there was a gentleman called Christopher Amp who spearheaded local wine growing and had the Sussex Wine Festival, I suppose it was called, at Drusilla's, where there was a small vineyard and local wine vintners and so on. But in those days, they were discriminated against by the EU because apparently the vines that we use were considered to be a hybrid and therefore not pure enough to be like champagne. Well, now it turns out that the soil that we've been growing in for years and years and years and years is so good for sparkling wines, particularly, that we are beating the pants off those in other parts of the world. And so, at long last, legally, the wine growers can say Sussex wine, and you cannot say Sussex wine if you ain't Sussex wine, any more than you can say champagne if you ain't champagne. So it's a real victory for these people. And it is well worthwhile. They have been a little bit more expensive because of various tax concessions to the heartland of France and other parts of the EU. But the price should actually start to equal out now, I would have thought, to buy some English Sussex wines. And you can now say, I will have a Sussex wine. And you should be offered a range of wines within that that are grown locally, that are bottled locally, that are sold locally. And it's a good way of supporting the local economy, supporting a particular sector, but also recognizing, along with the experts, that we turn out a very, very decent product. And English wine is a decent product. Now, be careful you do not confuse English wine with British wine. English wine is that produced by a vineyard that is situate in England. British wine is where a solution is imported and then the wine is made up here by adding water and so on and so forth. So actually it's a funny mixture. It's neither here nor there. Some of it is okay, but it's nothing special. English wines are special. They taste absolutely superb. That's not me talking. That's not even the vineyards talking, although they do say that. What it is in blindfold tastings, up against the world's best, English wine, and particularly Sussex wine, has stood up extremely well. So much so that it is said, and I have to say it is said because I've never seen the actual evidence, it's only hearsay, that French and overseas producers are buying up acreage here because they want to limit the growth of our own wine, domestic wine, but also they might as well start to produce here if in fact we are producing such a good wine that it wins blind tastings. So it's all good news. And I rather like the idea of Sussex being the wine producing country of England. And you could see the vineyards. Most of them are very well kept. You can see the vineyards. Wouldn't it be nice if we had these sort of temperatures all every year, so that we found what happens right throughout the continent is that people grow grapes and make their own little brand of wine. Well, some of them sell it locally, but most of them is it's just so that they can have their own wine on their table at dinner time and lunchtime. Wonderful feeling, an absolutely wonderful feeling, and I have to say that that's how I was introduced to wine when I was about 13. I had a friend with very sophisticated parents, and who in those days, because this was immediately post-war, things like sugar and so on were still rationed. They made their own wine out of damsons and out of elderflower, and their white elderflower wine was particularly good. And they went and they picked the elderflower. They brewed, if that's the right word, the wine, and at each meal, wine would be served, and you could either have red, rather a sweet damson. I wouldn't actually recommend it for those people who like a decent red, but uh, also the rather more tart and closer to a good wine of elderflower. And it was a good grounding for me, and it should be a good grounding for anybody. It's the way that you actually get an education into wine. And it was a way that a 13-year-old was able to sit at a table and learn about wines, how to drink them, what goes with what, because the conversation would follow that sort of thing, even though wines were particularly difficult to get. Strangely enough, the popular wine, because it was reasonably cheap, which isn't anymore, in the wine shops at the time was Sauterne, which really is it's really a pudding wine, I suppose, and it's on the sweet side. But that showed the taste of the country at the time. And we went for sweet wines rather than those which tested the palate or complemented the food. Although I must confess is that the food at the table in those days was much more to my liking than the food that we get now. I'm sorry, but I say foreign muck when I'm faced with pizza and pasta, and when you could have really very interesting, particularly when it comes to pies and stews. We are particularly good in England with pies and stews. Okay, some of the lighter stuff is why not continental. I do like Chinese food. Then I was from the age of about 18. I was weaned on Chinese food in the heart of Vancouver's Chinatown, which was the biggest Chinatown at that time. It was the biggest Chinatown in North America, next to San Francisco. So, boy, did you have a choice! It's absolutely wonderful. It's not there anymore. Those stupid councils. Whenever you see anything that says, Chinatown, etc., Vancouver, don't believe it. It's bump. Chinatown has gone. There's still good Chinese restaurants, but they're scattered around because the population of Vancouver increased enormously in the Asian sector. And so because they were living in the community, they expected their restaurants to be in the community. So the heart of Chinatown has gone. And what a pity. The noise of Chinatown was absolutely wonderful. You could walk past things like the New Republic Club, and you could hear as they played mahjong. Actually, you can do that in Hong Kong as well, but that's rather a long way to go. Well, I suppose Vancouver Chinatown is too, but then I was living amongst it at the time. Okay, there we are. It's 8:18, and time for us to say cheerio from Rouser Radio, and we will join you again in 10 or 15 minutes' time with this outlet, Mirador Television, and Break an Egg, and we look forward to joining us. Those of you who might just discover this by accident, that's what it's all about, is our little radio teaser, which we bring along at 7:30 each weekday morning, that is. So now we're going to say toodle pip. You've been listening to Rouser Radio out of Lewis, East Essex. We'd love to have you with us on Monday to Friday from 7:30 to 8, and then if you want to stay with us, our television service, Mirador Television, at 8:30.